But let me just talk briefly, about what it means to write for D&D, or how to be successful if your community is interested in this. And I would really, really encourage, those who've got, even as a hobbyist, like you don't want to do it full time, but like if you just want to do it part time and have your creative works put out there, make a little bit of extra money, all of those things. I would love to see that, because I should not be, I'm fine with being the first, but I should not be the last. And I want my work to be an opening of the door for other Indian creators to come out. This is not my full-time job, and I would actually love people who are maybe have more time to do it and take up the mantle and take up the torch and kind of like continue and do their ideas that I'm sure are great and fantastic and a lot more than mine. So let me kind of walk you through, this is some really like 101 advice, but here's what I have noticed and what I would think. And this is me talking to Wes Snyder and talking to a bunch of other writers who've been very successful as well. So these are some pieces of advice. And this is going to be, I think, a little bit more specific to D&D, but it can be applied to anything. The first is, like, obviously read the official D&D material, but reading isn't enough. I think sometimes people will read the material and be like, oh, I'm just going to immediately like write something from it. You've got to play like lots and lots of D&D and with different groups with different styles and see what's working and what's not working and kind of understand the mistakes and the ups and downs. The second thing I would say is, once you finish reading and playing, is write a lot. Wes said one of the things that he really recommends is like write 10 adventures, and along those lines is, create a writing group or be part of a couple of writing groups that are like, okay, we're going to put together these adventures, and you share it. You maybe have some benchmarks, like once every 2 months we're going to show each other our adventures and play through those adventures. But like write multiple adventures, read lots of adventures, play them, and go back and forth and see what's working. Be really receptive to critical advice. Be very, very humble. Be willing to kill your darlings. Also, same thing with mechanics. Create monsters, magic items, subclasses. Understand the fine tuning of how mechanics work for D&D. But when you're writing it, one of the things to think about is this is not a novel and this is not fiction. This is an interactive storytelling experience. And so what I observe with first-time writers, especially if they come from a fiction background, is to write it as if they're like telling the grand story, and everybody's just going to be a passive reader of that grand story. You have to create plot hooks, story elements. You have to have DMs have to read your stuff and be inspired to create their own things, to build their own stories. So really think about this as an interactive storytelling experience and not a single not piece of fiction and novel. And the players have to be able to pick up on your themes. One of the things that I've seen with a recent writer that I'm working with is, he's approaching his material like, I want to like present 50 different ideas, and I'm like, hey, boil this down to 3. Tell me what your 3 key themes are, and repeat those themes again and again and again through your adventure and through your material. Otherwise, you're going to lose your readers. They're not going to understand what's in your head. Take the time to do it well and take it care. Approach this professionally, but don't hold on to it for like 3 years. Get it out there and get feedback. Keep innovating. Watch what people react to. Ask for feedback. Ask for people to tell you whether they liked it or didn't like it. I really want to kind of double down about like creating those writing groups. You've got your great Discord server here. You all should start breaking onto smaller writing groups within the server and kind of like start jamming, do game jams together. Once you've done a lot of writing and you've maybe put some, you've play tested it a lot, is start to publish. I know the DMs Guild people have started to put some out there. Put more out there. Let me know you're putting it out there. I'll put it out into social media as much as possible. But the DMs Guild's a great start. Then the next company I would recommend looking at is Cobalt Press. Cobalt Press has done work with WotC Wizards of the Coast on official work. Wolfgang Bauer really understands 5e. They are interested in new writers. And Cobalt Press is a great way to get cut your teeth on like working for an established, gaming company. They've been around for a while. So I would recommend reaching out to Cobalt Press and seeing ways you can submit to them. So when you have DMs Guild, you've got some portfolio material you can show, and then you can show to Cobalt Press, and maybe they'll be interested, and then you can build up more material for your portfolio. Another one to look at is like Matt Colville and Arcadia. I think they're also accepting submissions from new writers. Darrington Press, which is attached to Critical Role, I'm sure down the road they're going to put their own 5e material attached to the Critical Role brand. There's a new gaming company based out of Australia called Ghostfire. I don't know if they're accepting submissions, but you should definitely look at them. But you want to keep on writing. You want to keep on playtesting. You want to keep on showing your material. You want to keep on promoting your material, both within the server, but to the larger social media audience out on Twitter. Then because I've had a lot of experience recently with larger projects, I'm just going to give you some one-on-one material about understanding how to manage that. Is the first thing is you got to have some reasonable, decent project management skills and make deadlines. When a publisher says, "Hey, I need this by May 10th," hand it in on May 10th. Make sure that you are on top of that. Yeah. Freelancers are super notorious for being 2, 3, 4 weeks late. If you're the freelancer who can deliver good work on time every time, your name will be up on the top of the list to hire for future stuff. Get yourself familiar with Adobe InDesign, obviously Word. Just continue to practice writing, but also editing. Edit your work, but edit other people's work and see what's working and what isn't working. And then finally, narrative design. And this is really about understanding the player experience. Understand what is going to throw people out of a game and what's going to engage them in a game and in a story. And then, follow other designers on Twitter. They talk about, there's a lot of influencers and a lot of people doing actual play in D&D, which is great. It's fun to watch them. And I think you can learn a lot from watching their games. But I think you can also learn a lot from following designers who are willing to talk about D&D. One of my favorite to follow is an Iranian designer by the name of Justice Arman. He works for Beetle and Grimm, which is they do a lot of 5e products. Justice is great. He talks about D&D reasonably often, but there's a lot of other designers out there to look at. Jeremy and Chris and obviously all the senior designers at Wizards of the Coast are great people to talk to, but they sometimes talk about D&D, sometimes they don't, but try to find other ones who are thinking and talking about D&D and they'll give you some guidance. So that's sort of my nutshell.
Way more than I could have hoped for, and in fact, I was hedging the time constraints we have but thank you for taking that extra 20 minutes and just really taking us through all those kind of curiosities that as creators, everyone in the community shares, and I know that for a fact.